Mythological inspirations behind Game of Thrones. Although most of us learned about Game of Thrones in 2013 along with the series, Game of Thrones is a book series consisting of 4 and still ongoing, written by George R.R. Martin. This book is inspired by the holy books and the mythologies and legends of various geographies, and sometimes by real historical events. Now let's look at the similarities between the Game of Thrones series and what happened. It is almost obvious that the 7 kingdoms fighting for the throne in Game of Thrones represent the 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of East Anglia, Essex, Kent, Mercia, Northumbria, Sussex, and Wessex, which fought for the dominance of England in the early Middle Ages. In fact, the kingdoms' livelihoods, coats of arms, geographical locations, and even their names are similar to the kingdoms in British history. Both in terms of his character and life story, Jon Snow is likened to King Arthur, who united the 7 kingdoms of England, due to his characteristics such as being the child of an illegitimate union, being raised as an adopted child away from home, being from the north, and being the head of the Knights of the Round Table. According to British mythology, the Knights of the Round Table were the highest honorary rank in King Arthur's retinue and would gather around a round table to symbolize equality and justice among them. If we consider that Jon Snow symbolizes King Arthur, we can think that the Night's Watch also symbolizes the Knights of the Round Table. The author of the book, Martin, stated in an interview that he was influenced by Greek mythology when creating the characters. Both their characters, their loved ones and haters, and their ways of life and death are compared to Robert Baratheon, King Zeus, and Cersei Lannister to his wife, the goddess Hera, who was in a forced marriage with Zeus and poisoned him to death. The conflicts between the Stark and Lannister families are compared to the War of the Roses, which lasted for many years and even centuries, including the covert Cold War and intrigues between the York and Lancaster families in Britain. The similarity of the kingdoms' names is also a plus, since the York family crest has a white rose and the Lancaster family crest has a red rose. These conflicts were named the War of the Roses. Robb Stark is compared to King Edward IV, who reigned in England. King Edward IV became king after his father was accused of treason and was killed in a short time, but he was killed soon after. Just as Robb's brother Bran was disabled, King Edward IV's youngest brother was disabled, but he became king under the name Richard III in the future. The Northern Wall in the book is thought to be a reference to Hadrian's Wall, which was built in England in 122 BC during the reign of Roman Emperor Hadrian to determine the northern border of the Roman Empire. Magical god trees and noble disabled brothers escaping from enemies are taken from Norse mythology, which includes epic stories of the Vikings. In fact, each of the Stark brothers has a character they represent in Norse mythology. Rickon represents Gamir, Bran represents Fenrir, Arya represents Hati, and Robb represents Skull. Although House Greyjoy is associated with the Greeks, it is clear that it is actually completely inspired by the Vikings. It can be said that the stubborn and free-spirited Greyjoy house, which moves with ships and pursues a policy of plunder, rape, and invasion, is inspired by the Vikings. The faceless men are reminiscent of Bian Lian in Chinese mythology, who constantly changes her face and takes on the guise of different people. According to some commentators, Brienne of Tarth is likened to the strong and independent female knight, Jeanne d'Arc. In addition to their names, their physical appearances, piety, being pro-justice, loyalty to their kings, and independent spirits are also similar, as they are large and have short blonde hair. The most popular Game of Thrones character, Mother of Dragons Daenerys Targaryen, is the queen who promises freedom to slaves and stands by the oppressed class in order to seize the throne she believes is her true right from distant lands. Looking at the revolutionary spirit of Daenerys Targaryen, it can be said that she represents China as a country. In addition, dragons are the symbol of China, just like Daenerys Targaryen. Khal Drogo, one of the most popular Game of Thrones characters, it is thought that the Mongols were inspired by the legendary leader of the Mongols, Genghis Khan. The Mongols, who went down in history as a race that pursued a plundering policy on horseback and burned, destroyed, and raped the places they invaded, were featured in Game of Thrones as the Dothraki. The scene where Khal Drogo presents the golden crown to Viserys Targaryen, who wants Westeros, and melts the gold and pours it on Viserys Targaryen's head to kill him, is similar to the event in history when Genghis Khan took Otrar governor Inalsic captive as a result of the war and killed him by pouring silver into his mouth in the event known as the Otrar disaster. If you look at Westeros, the country that is mentioned in Game of Thrones, it is the upside-down version of the British island today. And for this reason, Game of Thrones is certainly inspired by British history. In this context, it is possible to say that the scriptwriter of the series and the author of the book, George R.R. Martin, was greatly influenced by the war between 7 kingdoms in English history, known as the War of the Roses, 1455 to 1485. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.